Hello, Judy. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I am a professional enterprise agile coach. I work with enterprise infrastructure groups, software test automation and engineering groups for software testing as a service. And I also coach in the DevOps space. I'm a certified agile coaching trainer for IC Agile. I also train with regard to the Agile team facilitator certification for IC Agile. I currently do professional agile coaching, business development coaching, and training.
Thank you so much, Judy. Welcome back to Aisha Tech. On today's series, we have one of my lead mentor, Coach Judy. And Coach Judy, it's like an honor to have you on Aisha Tech's channel today. As Coach Judy, I've been one of the person that actually helped me a lot to understand the difference between an agile coach and a professional coach. And on today's session, though, we're going to be doing Agile Scrum Master / Agile Coach interview to help you out there in this journey. And Coach Judy is a certified Agile trainer, mentor, um, an educator, a coach, and everything. Extremely knowledgeable in this space. So I'm very, very actually so happy to have her here today. So, Coach Judy, I really want to talk on a little bit about your journey on being an agile. So, how did you transition from being an attorney to being a agilist as you are right now?
So it's interesting because I began as an attorney and I got my licensure. And while I got my license, I was also serving in the United States Air Force. And while I was in the Air Force, I learned about the concept of teams self-organizing around achieving missions. For those of you who know something about the history of Scrum, you know that Jeff Sutherland was a Marine Corps pilot, and much of what he learned in his military history, he translated into what we now know as Scrum. And so I learned those things too. I also learned about lean and lean ways of delivery while I was in the Air Force as a part of their Total Quality Force initiative back in the early 1990s. And so when I left the military, I went back into one of my areas of interest, which was information technology. And on that journey, I just happened to come across this concept called Scrum. And I thought, well, what is this? And it's interesting because the way I came about it was I was working for a healthcare company as a systems analyst. And our company, the managers had a policy, every manager bought a magazine in the technology sector, and we would pass it around the area, everyone would read it. And I happened to be the last one to read it one day. And I was asked to work on a top secret project for the company. And I had this magazine with me. And I opened up the magazine and I'm reading it. And there's this article on this thing called Scrum. So I read it and I thought, well, I already know all that. I know how to do that. And so I went to my little secret project meeting and we were assigned to remediate a particular space in the enterprise to make it work better. And I was assigned to a team with two other people. And those two people were going to help us deliver this initial initiative. And it was really fun because the first day we got together, there was myself, a woman who had retired and come back as a consultant, and literally a team member who had just gotten off the plane from India. He walked into our little room with his luggage. And we sat down and we talked about what do we do? How do we learn about this? What are we going to do about this? And I remembered that I had this magazine with me I'd been carrying around. I said, hey, why don't we try this? And so I literally passed the magazine on Scrum around. My teammates read it and they said, yeah, let's do this. And so we actually delivered, fast forward 1 month, we delivered a solution that took a particular functional area that took 30 days to accomplish its tasks. And we were able to reduce it to a 2-day process, the three of us. And every time we had a question, we would go back to our little magazine article and we would read it and say, what does it tell us to do? How do we do this Scrum thing? What are we doing? And so what I realized from that experience was what I learned in the military and how it translated into, for example, Scrum was powerful. It could do amazing. And when I coupled that with what I knew about lean, I really started to get energized about this is a way of working. This is the future. Teams can optimize if we embrace what these activities ask us to do. And so that's how I moved from being an attorney. And the more I got into it, the more I was energized by it. And the more I kept saying, this is the right thing to do. And that naturally pulled me back into information technology and away from legal practice. And I haven't looked back since.
Thank you so much. That was a very good transition story. So I know like throughout your experience, for the most part, being an enterprise coach, for the most part, you work a lot with stakeholders, vice presidents, presidents,
Mhm.
people that make these big decisions in tech companies. And I know this because we've talked in the past and you work for a lot of, you've worked for Fortune 500 companies. So when it comes to managing stakeholders, so what are some things like a Scrum Master should look for?
Well, when you're working with stakeholders, you want to understand what their interests are. There's a saying, what's in it for me? You'll hear people say, what's the with them in this? That's all about what's that individual stakeholder's real interest in whatever it is that they're asking for or whatever it is that your team is doing. Understanding that with them, what's really in it for them, will help you to align what the team is doing and the order in which they're doing it with the interests of that stakeholder so that they understand this is the order we need to take things in. This is why it's important to that stakeholder. Because remember, our Agile principle about our number one goal is the continuous delivery of value. So we need to understand what's valuable for them as stakeholders as we align and organize around the work. And as a Scrum Master, you want to make sure that you don't just understand what do they want, you understand why is it valuable? Why are they asking for this particular thing at this particular time? And how does that play out? And this is where you want to partner with your product owner to make sure that that information is being teased out.
That's really good. So what if you have a stakeholder that constantly will push back? What are some technique or some things you can encourage or advise Scrum Masters to do to help them navigate difficult stakeholders?
Whenever I work with Scrum Masters who are dealing with difficult stakeholders, my first recommendation is meet with the stakeholder and do what's called an empathy interview. An empathy interview is a one-on-one interview where you sit down with stakeholder and you understand what are they after? What are the problems that they feel or the risk that they are concerned about that the team isn't addressing, and why is that important? You know, again, it's about the with them. The reason why you do it as an empathy interview is because you have to understand group dynamics. People behave one way in a group that is often different from the way they behave individually. If they are acting out in the group, it's probably performative. They may feel they need to wear that mask and that persona in order for things to get done in a group setting. That may not be a match for who they really are as people. So you want to understand them in the context of being people who are in positions and they want things as a result of being in those positions. And if you align those things, and empathy interviews do that, they're one-on-one, they're individual, you can better understand and get credibility with that individual. It also helps because it allows you to form a personal relationship. We take our masks off and we become individuals with common goals. And you can have different conversations. So first things first, Scrum Masters, know your stakeholders, meet them, have conversations with them, have a coffee with them. One technique I used to use at the enterprise level was to take my stakeholders to a 15-minute coffee. We would just go to the break room, the local coffee area at the facility, or even outside for a walk. And we just talk. Help me understand who you are, help me understand your needs, and help me understand how I can help the team self-organize around your asks And then I can share with you, these are the competing interests. This is why the team does certain things in this certain way. The net effect is we level set and re-baseline. Everyone has a shared understanding of how things work and the order in which things have to be done and the interest that stakeholders have in the process. And that goes a long way towards easing the discomfort and the tension, because often our stakeholders, particularly when they're difficult, they're being difficult because they're not feeling as though they're being heard. So by opening up a channel of communication that is meaningful, they have a way to be heard, and they will reduce their likelihood of reaching out and tapping our developers on the shoulder to get something that's not ending up on the Kanban board, and they will pivot to talking to the product owner and the Scrum Master, which is where we want them.
Yeah, that's really so true. So sometimes at work, I've been part of a lot of different transformation, like in Agile transformation. And sometimes I'll hear some stakeholders, they'll be like, oh, Agile doesn't work. That team tried, they failed. The other team, we wasted our money. We were doing all these meetings, such a waste of our time. And at the end, we did not deliver any faster. What are some things around the team, around the stakeholder that will make such comments of Agile doesn't work? Such different example like
The number one reason why teams fail is because they didn't launch or they didn't launch properly. So in order to talk about that, let's just take a really super quick detour and talk about Tuckman. Every time in agility, often we have people talking about Tuckman, they talk about those 4 phases of team development. You know, we form, we storm, we norm, we perform. There's also an adjourn piece, but for the sake of this conversation, that's not really relevant. But we never talk about the why. Why teams? Why do teams form? And this is what the concept of launching is all about. And when teams don't understand, when people don't understand, why have we been brought together to leverage our skills and our expertise in order to unlock synergies to achieve goals or objectives, they won't norm, or they'll norm in an agile anti-pattern. And this is the reason why launching is almost always the root cause of failure. In fact, I would argue that every team failure is rooted in an improper launch or a lack of a launch altogether, because what a number of companies do is they'll put people together, call them a team, and say, okay, go do this. Every team needs to be launched. Sometimes a launch can be big, sometimes the launch can be small, but every team must be launched. Why? Because people need to know, why are we being put together? Meaning, what's the mission? What do you expect from me? Meaning, how is what I do, my unique skill set, contributing to the achievement of this mission? Why is it important? This is the value proposition, going back to our agile principles of delivering value. And this is what I expect from other people. This is what I'll show up for. So if you want me to team, you have to address these needs. If you address these 4 things, and this is really what a launch is designed to do, the team will form, it will storm, and then it will finally norm around these core values and concepts and variables. And if they do that, and we otherwise remove constraints from the system, that's an external reality, the team will be successful, because they can't be anything except successful. Why? Because everyone is invested in what? The mission.
That's such a great point. And the launching part, that's heavy on that. But sometimes I've seen this a lot too, sometimes where team will be formed and they don't even know why, you know. And knowing the why and the reason behind anything, I think set people up for greatness for sure. So you mentioned about launching a new team, and you also already raised like very valid 4 points. But for someone that's a new Scrum Master, that journey organization, they don't have support within an Agile coach. They don't have an Agile excellence services in their company. They don't have any enterprise Agile coaches, and then they are hired blindly to come to a team that's just formed. So what are some ways that Scrum Masters can do to help better support this new launch team that they want them to facilitate meeting for? What is the best way for a Scrum Master to help kickstart a new team?
I think the easiest way to do that is to use the power of the retro, because we often think of retros as what worked well, what didn't work well, what can we do next, and then celebrate what worked well. But we can also create the retro in the form of a launch. The retro can be a launching retro. Its contours are, let's briefly find out who we are. Who are the people in the room? That's exercise number one. We can use our mural or mural board to help people introduce themselves and their skill sets. We can have our leader come in and briefly explain, this is the mission, this is why this team exists, and these are the goals we're after. And then they leave the room. Everybody gets to hear it. Everybody gets to ask questions to clarify what is the mission. And then we can talk about what people value as contributors. Everyone has something about what they do as professionals that is valuable and that motivates them to do what they're doing. I'm very, very good at this thing, and I value having that recognized. I value professional development, so I'm always wanting to learn from my teammates. I value helping people get to done. So we have a values conversation, and then we establish working agreements. These are we work best together when. And foundationally, what we're doing in that first pass as a Scrum Master to launch this team in this very unique retro is we want to establish the literal working agreements that are the barriers to collaboration and communication. So, too many meetings, meetings with no agenda. Everyone thinks that these are the really and things of this ilk. People think they're the very easy things, but these things derail seasoned Agile teams. People showing up late for meetings, people being invited to meetings and not knowing why because there's no agenda, people being invited to too many meetings given the mission of the team. And so when we establish this baseline level of working agreements, we're setting the precedent that working agreements are supposed to help us get to the mission, get to done. We also want to have a clear understanding of what's the definition of done. How are we going to define it so that we know definitively, no arguments, when we can stop working on things? I'm done with this. Done means done. Don't ask me again. That can derail teams when we're not clear on what done means as a team. And we can commit to each other as a working agreement by doing things like creating WIP agreements. How much WIP and how do we handle it? How do we respond? Do we swarm? Do we mob? Do we pause? And what is it that we're going to need to do? And then a last working agreement could even be we cycle back and circle back to our working agreements every quarter so that they're alive and they reflect what we're experiencing. As a Scrum Master, if you're new and the team is new and you want them to be successful and you don't have any of these other accoutrements, I would do a launching retro and I would use those things to accomplish those goals.
Very, very great answer, for sure. So now speaking about when it comes to gathering requirements in Agile, I know sometimes a team would like to work on a functionality and the team might not have much experience of that. And sometimes, especially for teams that are basically very new to Agile, it's like very challenging for them to even start working on something that they don't fully know and understand.
Mm-hmm.
So in your experience, what is the best way for an Agile team to gather requirements?
Well, I'm going to say it's to use the method of the user story, but I want to go a little bit farther because a user story is really a summary of what a customer values. I want this so that I can do that because I value this outcome. And when I work with teams, and I work with Scrum Masters in particular, I ask them, help the team understand what the value proposition is for the ask. This is why we use that user story formula, and it is a formula. I want, so that, because. And if we do the 3 C's, we have a card, make it brief, a conversation. What does this really mean? What does it not mean? And then we confirm. So if this thing is true, you expect to get that benefit. By using that structure, and it's very easy for teams to internalize this and understand it, we can ask meaningful questions and make observations to our customers. Hey, customer, you're asking for this particular thing. Guess what? That thing will not result in that outcome, but this is the thing that will. The 3 C's tease out these disconnects between customer expectations and desired values. And when we do that, we remove the obstacle of doing what the customer asked and the customer not valuing the thing presented. Because maybe the customer didn't know that that particular ask will not result in that particular value. But you do. By having a 3 C's conversation and by using that formula, we combine them and it teases it out in a very, very efficient way, which is the thing that in waterfall we really struggled with, right? We would have endless conversations, but we would never ask the question, what problem are you trying to solve? And the user story formula and the 3 C's are designed to do that. What problem are you trying to solve? So I like for Scrum Masters to help their teams to master the formula and the 3 C's. If they do that, they're much more likely to produce meaningful, accurate user stories.
That is so true. Sometimes I see Scrum Masters, this new mentee is saying that, oh, why are you teaching us user story? That should be for product owner. Product owner, I was like, no. You cannot be a good Scrum Master and not understand how to craft and write a good user story. Because you are not only coaching the team, but you are also coaching the product owner.
Exactly.
So that's a very, very great point. By the way, if this content have been valuable to you, kindly like and subscribe to this channel. It would mean so much for this channel. We put a lot of effort and time to bring this content to you. I only ask one thing of you. Would you hire Coach Judy or not hire Coach Judy? Comment that in the comments below to help push this video so that we can continue this series. And if you're interested in mentorship, do not hesitate to email us at admin@aishascrumtech.com. So, Coach Judy, before we move further, I know like you also have intense experience in DevOps.
Mm.
How does DevOps relate to Agile?
Well, the interesting story of DevOps is that it's actually just another Agile construct. It's an organic realization of one of our leading Agile principles, which is that communication allows us to get to value faster. And when we collaborate, we unlock value faster. And DevOps is the recognition that development and ops have collaborative cross-functional relationships that come together to deliver value. And so DevOps isn't so much a thing to be done, although it tends to be a siloed reality for companies. It is in reality a recognition of these cross-functional, cross-collaborative realities, and it asks us to think about problems to be solved viewed through that lens. If we do that, we will recognize the instances where there's more efficiency in allowing specializations that come together instead of having one silo with everything in it. Why? Because the specialization allows people to get really deep and really expert at particular things. Maybe it's in building CI/CD pipelines. Maybe it's in deploying Kubernetes clusters. Maybe it's in monitoring and health checking with Grafana and Prometheus. By allowing these people to become experts and then allowing them to, in effect, form teams. Remember, we talked about there are 4 Tuckman levels. But the fifth one is adjoining. DevOps is where this can be really, really common. Teams form and unform and form and unform as they need to deliver value for large scale, complex, particularly often hidden activities. Where do we see this optimized? Infrastructure. More than anywhere else, DevOps is where infrastructure has its home and its kin. That's your tribe. And it's because of these cross-functional collaborative dynamics.
That's very well explained. So when it comes to a Scrum Master, right? Like for me, I've never worked in DevOps environments. I know I don't know much about DevOps, but that's something for sure I have in my plate to learn more about. But what's going to be the role of a Scrum Master in a DevOps environment?
So for a Scrum Master in a DevOps environment or in a team that is in a cross-functional space, it's important for them to understand the power of collaborative scrumming. So individual teams will often align by those areas of expertise, but their cross-functional activities may impact other teams. The Scrum Masters can use the mechanism of Scrum of Scrums because those relationships need to have a common area where we can rank, order, and prioritize. So the Scrum Masters can participate, can form SOSs that help the teams. So even they form and unform, if you will. And as they form, they discuss what's happening in different spaces. How is this actually playing out? And then they unform, go back to their areas and say, these are the things that we owe into the common good. Form and unform. And as they move through those cycles and sequences, they iteratively deliver value. And it allows us to prioritize, to adjust, to tune, to do all of the things that we would do as Agile teams, and in particular Scrum teams that continuously deliver value. And so for Scrum Masters, it's important to recognize and, if necessary, form those SOSs so that they can make sure that those conversations are happening, that lower level team formations are happening from a cross-functional collaborative perspective, and they can then allow the teams to unlock those synergies that they're going to get from working together and exploiting those tremendously deep skill sets.
That's really good. I also know like you have very intense knowledge in discipline agile. What's the difference between discipline agile and safe agile, scaled agile?
So SAFe is a hybridized framework for scaling Scrum. Scrum, and that is really the number one thing that defines SAFe. SAFe allows teams that are in iterative delivery models to transition at scale as a launch from an iterative model of delivery of framework like waterfall into a hybridized delivery of Scrum while still maintaining some of the characteristics of their waterfall delivery. So for example, SAFe deployments will often still have PMOs. SAFe deployments will still have project managers, product managers, and program managers. And the system tolerates this hybridization, but it is a framework. So it gives you ways to engage and structure release trains, etc., so that you can scale delivery. Disciplined Agile, first and foremost, is not a framework. It's a toolkit. You're going to see out on the web people discussing disciplined Agile frameworks. The official position of disciplined Agile, as owned and deployed and certified by PMI, the only certifying body for it, is that it is a toolkit. And the reason it's a toolkit is because it's the sum of all of this delivery knowledge and expertise from iterative delivery, from Agile, from Lean. And it brings it together as a set of tools that you can use to identify your Agile way of working, or WOW. And this is powerful because disciplined Agile is a framework agnostic, framework indifferent reality. And its only goal is to teach you these are all of the tools out there that can be at your disposal. Pick and choose from wherever you want based on your context in order to find your optimized way of working. So one of the phraseologies you're going to hear a lot with disciplined agilists is context matters. Because how you configure your way of working is a function of the situation you find yourselves in.
That's really interesting. So what will be the role of a Scrum Master if they are working with such disciplined agile tool and mindset?
So the Scrum Master in a disciplined agile framework has to understand what are the tools available. And they have to be able to understand, how do I pull from this massive infinite toolkit in order to help the team tune its delivery? It's not a small endeavor. Disciplined Agile is deep and dense, and there are certifications in it for Scrum Masters for that very reason. There is the Disciplined Agile Scrum Master and then a Senior Scrum Master certification. And the reason is because you need to learn how to master how do you use these tools, and they are interrelated in order to craft a way of delivery that reflects the team's optimized way of working in the context in which they are operating. And so the Scrum Master is really using that much in the same way that they use ceremonies in conventional Scrum to figure out what are the tools the team needs to employ in order to get it done the fastest. So they have to be able to understand, in this particular scenario, does this team need to use an iterative tool like a code review? That's actually an iterative tool, and that would be a disciplined thing. How could they do it? Well, now let's pull from Scrum and Agility and say they could use the mid-sprint demo. So as you can see, two concepts that we tend to see as actually not the same are in fact two sides of the same coin. And a disciplined agile Scrum Master recognizes that and says, we need a code review. We're going to do it by using a mid-sprint demo. And so that's what we mean when we say we're choosing tools from a lot of different disciplines of delivery in order to figure out what's the best way to get it done.
That's really interesting. Very different way and different mindset of working. And I like the fact that you have flexibility to pick and choose the best that each framework to adopt it to the team. That's a really
Yeah,
good concept.
it's a great concept because it helps free Scrum Masters from what are some of the unfortunate constraints of Scrum by recognizing, if this is the problem in front of the team and this particular tool would help that team solve that problem, get past that problem, why wouldn't you use it?
Yeah. So now let's talk about agile metrics, right? What is the best key performance indicator, which is the KPI, for an agile team? So how can sometimes when stakeholder come to a Scrum Master and start saying, oh, we want KPI, we want KPIs. What are some things Scrum Masters can do to help show the way how the team is performing? And what are some other KPIs Scrum Masters can implement or use that's best based on your own experience and your opinion?
I think the number one thing that Scrum Masters need to do is to measure velocity, but they also need to measure, how will I put this? Because this is something that Scrum Masters really struggle with. They need to measure story accuracy as it relates to sprint goals captured. So this is a bit complex. And the way that this particular metric works is we have to understand how many story points that the team commit to, and based on that, how many story points actually got captured relative to the sprint goal. And then we have to further break down the why of any deltas between commitment and capture as it relates to the structure of the user stories. Going back to our previous conversation, one of the most common reasons why teams don't achieve their sprint goals is because of poor story development and over planning as a result. So the team commits to way too many story points, and then they can't capture them all because they get into performing and producing the user stories and find that maybe that user story needed actually to be a spike. So it does create a delta, and we don't track that. What we need to do is track that so that we can remediate it. If we remediate that, what happens to capacity? It goes up. So we want to look at velocity, but we also want to look at this particular metric. Where we see most Scrum Masters focusing their attention is on how many user stories did you complete. They completely ignore, did you achieve your sprint goal? And we should be longitudinally measuring that. So quarter over quarter, the sum of all of the sprints, how often did you capture your sprint goal? That's another metric that is important to KPI because it tells us about efficiency, but the root cause of that as well is buried in this metric. So we can use things like cumulative flow diagrams to help us to tease out that metric and understand it better. But we want to tie that to measuring sprint goals captured quarter over quarter, but also velocity. And remember, this is Agile and this is Scrum, so we only metric what matters.
Very great point to end with. That is so true. So if this have been valuable, like and subscribe to this channel. I really would appreciate it. And don't forget to comment hire Coach Judy or not hire Coach Judy to get this video going. And also Coach Judy. So far in your years of experience, right? What do you think is one way to get an agile team into a high performing? What would the Scrum Master do to get their team to be a high performing so that they can able to deliver value? So what can you advise on that area?
Really focus on helping the team understand the mission and make a commitment to applying their expertise to the achievement of that mission, and then help them to self-organize. One of the things that Scrum Masters do that I see a lot of, and it is an anti-pattern, is the Scrum Master will fall into the pattern of becoming a manager. Or they'll fall into the pattern of taking care of activities that the Scrum team should own for itself because they don't want the team to feel uncomfortable. This undermines a sense of accountability. The team has everything that it needs to self-organize around the mission. The Scrum Master, remember, is an Agile champion as well. So they want to reflect back when the team is doing something that prevents them from delivering value, from self-organizing, from holding one another accountable, from honoring their working agreements and commitments. So the Scrum Master has to be an active Scrum champion who is helping the team to make the right agility choices as they move through self-organization, execution, and completion. And that's what I really want to see from teams. And if you do those things, this can help the Scrum team to be successful and to become energized and to continue to achieve and produce higher and higher capacities and higher increments of value.
That's a really, really good point. Thank you so much, Coach Judy. So I know you have a lot of trainings, mentoring, and coaching, and your own businesses. Do you mind telling us a little bit about your mentorship program and your training program so viewers can able to reach out if they need? So tell us a little bit about your agile businesses and stuff.
Sure. So I own a consulting firm called Agile Sensei Consulting. And what we do is we offer enterprise, team, and individual one-on-one Agile coaching. We also offer business development coaching in the Agile space in particular, and we also function with regard to career coaching in the Agile space. So I offer services of the one-on-one coaching. I also offer services of helping teams launch, helping organizations adopt agility, and also to help them to tune and optimize their Agile practices, both at the Agile enablement office level, all the way down to the individual team. So companies that are small, companies that are medium-sized, companies that are larger, domain spaces, whether it's enterprise infrastructure or something within enterprise infrastructure as an example, or maybe launching DevOps, we offer services in those spaces on a consultancy basis. So we can structure it so that we define what the engagement is, what the problem to be solved is, how long we think it will take, and then, obviously services and pricing are based on that.
That's really, really great. You all should definitely check Agile Sensing, right? Because to be honest, Coach Judy have helped me a lot. When I mean a lot, to understand like how to properly professionally coach, because I was going through the IC Agile certification training. And she definitely played a huge role in that journey for me. And I'm going to talk more later about that, but she's excellent coach, very good trainer, certified IC Agile ACC trainer, certified IC Agile ATF trainer. She has DevOps background, discipline Agile. Basically, she has all of this. So I highly encourage you all, if you're looking for a mentor and a coach, you want to check Agile Sensing, you should definitely reach out to Coach Judy. I'm going to be posting all this description too in this video's description. You're going to see all this information where you can contact Coach Judy. And by the way, Coach Judy, before we end, tell us a little bit about the book that you're also thinking about writing. Because I know like you're writing your book that you can back. So
Sure.
how is your book going? I know I throw you off guard there, but
The book's going really well. I will be publishing a book later this year. It is focused on uh, agile failing patterns for teams.
oh, that's a
It
good
is a guide, so I'm hoping that it will not be a really thick book. We don't want a phone book. We want something people can pick up and use. But the focus of the book is on why agile teams fail. What are the common indicators and symptoms that you'll see? What are the root causes? And then what are some remediation steps that you can take? It's going to be targeting Scrum Masters, Flow Masters, product owners, and stakeholders in the Agile space. And the goal is to give them tools that they can use to address anti-patterns that cause root cause failures.
Definitely. We will definitely have you back when that book launch, because I would like you to come in to talk about the book to others and we can share it for our viewers. I'm definitely going to be grabbing that book because I really, really would like to learn and also grow in this space. And thank you so much, Coach Judy, for taking your honorable time to come to Aisha Tech channel. Truly, truly mean a lot to me. I really appreciate it. Hopefully we can get you back later to do true professional coaching so we can demo it for our audience, Well, thank you so much for coming. I really, really appreciate that. Is there anything you want to end with before we end?
Thank you for having me. I love talking about agile coaching and I love agility as an area of endeavor. I think it's for everyone, and my goal as an agile coach is to help everyone on their agile journey.
Definitely. Thank you so much. If this has been valuable to you, do not forget to comment, like, share this video to other Agile practitioners out there you have. And also subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to comment, hire Coach Judy or not hire Coach Judy. Thank you all for watching this video. See you all again in our next video.